Oil painting, stage 1, background and blending. Here is the photograph that I will be painting from. First, I have drawn it out as accurately as I can. At this stage, you'll be adding in darker background tones, and I will also be showing you how to blend. Starting with these shadow tones in the background of my image. I've chosen to use lamp black for my shadow colour, but because the shadow has been created by the pink chair in the foreground, I've added a little bit of pink to this lamp black in order to tint my shadow to be a little bit more on the pink side. I have thinned it out a little bit. I don't want it to be my thickest layer because it is in my background. My paint will get thicker and thicker as I go on, so I am thinning it out, but it's not so thin that it's dripping down my page, and it's not so thin that I can still see through to my background. Here I'm just simplifying my two main shadow areas and blocking them out, using that lamp black colour with a little bit of pink to tint it. I've thinned it out to a good consistency to be able to paint it on easily, but it's still fairly opaque and it's not thin enough that it's dripping down my page. I've now moved on to the shadow behind my spade. Now this isn't really just an empty shadow area, this is actually just the pink chair behind it, which has been made a bit darker by the fact that the spade is in front of it. Therefore I'm actually using less lamp black this time and more pink. So make sure you tailor your shadow areas to suit. Really look at your image and observe the colours in the background. You will notice that I'm being quite precise. I'm trying to paint right up to all of my objects so that I'm not leaving little flickers of white canvas in between everywhere, as this can really distract the viewer's eye later. Make sure you do this, please. I don't want to see any flickers of your background. If you go a little bit wobbly here and there and you make some mistakes, it really doesn't matter very much because we're following that fat over lean rule where we will gradually get thicker and thicker with our paint. So for example here, if I've gone a little bit dodgy around my spade, later we're going to be using a very thick and very opaque yellow colour for the spade, which will actually be able to cover up any mistakes we've made in the background. Continuing with my background to foreground order of painting, I've now spotted that my next object in my background is that piece of kind of orange-red plastic that's kind of coming from the background behind the red chair, and then it's actually wrapping around the chair, and then it becomes more of a foreground object. I'm just going to do the whole thing now because since I'll be mixing that colour anyway, it makes sense to do the whole thing. So you can see me going in first to the piece that's actually in the background. I've mixed a colour using red and orange until I'm kind of happy that it suits my photograph. And I'm applying it in quite a directional way with my paintbrush, so really trying to kind of think about the way that fabric is draping in a downwards vertical position. It wouldn't really make sense to paint this in a horizontal way because you probably will see some of the brush strokes that I'm making. I kind of want you to, so I'm making sure that I do paint it in the correct direction. I have also added a little bit of thinner here like I did with the previous colour. You will have noticed that throughout I've been using some toilet roll to clean my brush here and there. This is because I've now got two wet oil colours on my canvas right next to each other, so I'm going to very easily start to blend them without wanting to or without meaning to. So as soon as I see that I've picked up a piece of colour on my brush that I didn't mean to, so a bit of that kind of lamp black and pink shadow colour from before, I'm making sure that I quickly wipe that away on a piece of blue roll or loo roll, whatever you've got. This will stop yourself smearing it accidentally and kind of muddying all of your colours. So just like when we've used watercolour paints before, I just want you to always have some blue roll on you, and remember to keep using it, keep cleaning your brush. This will stop you from muddying your colours accidentally. Okay, so now I'm actually going to do some blending on purpose. I want to show that this kind of plastic red fabric stuff in the background is obviously quite drapey, and because the fabric's draping in these folds, you get these kind of natural shadows forming, which show that there are creases there. So I'm just, you've seen me there, just add a little bit of my dark brown to the colour that I had already mixed up for my fabric. So I'm basically making a slightly darker version of that red orange colour by adding a little bit of the dark brown and mixing it really well on my palette first, actually putting no thinner in at this time because there's already some thinner in there from when I mixed the first colour. And what you've noticed that I've been doing is I've just been using my one brush, so the brush I used to actually mix the colour, my wet brush, to just lay my darker colour on top. So that's all I'm doing, I'm just laying it on top with my wet brush. And then I'm getting a brand new, you need to make sure that it is dry and that it is clean, it's got no paint in it whatsoever, and it's a nice soft brush. Okay, you could use a blending brush like that fan one you saw me use a moment ago, or just another soft brush. Okay, so it must be dry and it must be clean, and then you use this to feather and blend the dark colour into your kind of background colour. Okay, you can see me doing it here again now. I'm plonking on first with my wet brush. I'm not trying to paint it in or blend it in with my wet brush because that's just going to make a really muddy mess, and instead I'm taking then a clean dry brush and I'm using that to spread the oil paint, control it, put it where I want it and feather it in so I've got a nice soft transition. And keep cleaning your brush.